Have you ever wondered what life will be like in your twilight years? As we age, the choices we make, the relationships we nurture, and the values we hold close determine whether our later years will be filled with peace and comfort or with loneliness and regret. In this video, we explore the heart-wrenching realities faced by those who are unprepared for old age, including the profound regrets of living without children or a support system. Watch until the end to discover powerful lessons that can help you avoid the painful mistakes many elderly face, and learn how to create a future where your later years are not just about survival but about truly living. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video, you can continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. Number 1. Elderly people with unfilial children. For elderly individuals, having unfilial children can lead to profound suffering and loneliness. In their twilight years, these seniors often find themselves in a deeply distressing situation when their children fail to uphold their familial duties. When illness strikes, instead of stepping up to provide the necessary care and support, these children may neglect their responsibilities, leaving their aging parents to face their health challenges alone. The absence of filial piety manifests in various forms. Instead of offering emotional support or taking the time to attend to their parents' needs, many children may turn a blind eye, prioritizing their own lives over their parents' well-being. When their elderly parents become too frail or ill to care for themselves, these unfilial children may abandon them entirely, leaving them to navigate the hardships of illness without assistance. In some unfortunate cases, some children harbor an unsettling hope for their parents to pass away sooner, viewing them as burdens rather than beloved family members. This cruel mindset not only highlights a lack of compassion but also underscores the emotional isolation that the elderly experience in such situations. As a result, the lives of these seniors become marked by despair and neglect, leading to feelings of worthlessness and abandonment. The unfilial behavior of their children plunges elderly individuals into a dire predicament where they face the dual challenges of poor health and emotional neglect. Their physical ailments are compounded by the distressing reality of being uncared for by their kin, which exacerbates their suffering and diminishes their quality of life. Ultimately, this tragic dynamic serves as a poignant reminder of the essential role that familial love and support play in the lives of the elderly, emphasizing the need for compassion and responsibility across generations. Number 2. Elderly people with poor health. Many elderly individuals who grapple with poor health, particularly those burdened by chronic illnesses, often find themselves in distressing situations. Among these, some bedridden seniors endure long periods of confinement, trapped within the confines of their own homes or nursing facilities. Despite the diligent and loving care provided by their children, these individuals frequently experience a profound lack of comfort and emotional solace. Lying in bed day after day, many of these seniors face the harsh reality of long-term illness that may persist for 2 to 3 years, or in some heartbreaking cases, even extend over a decade or more. This prolonged state of existence can feel akin to living in a twilight zone, a state where they are physically alive yet stripped of the joys and quality of life that make existence meaningful. Each passing day can blur into the next, creating an overwhelming sense of isolation and despair. The impact of such circumstances extends beyond the elderly individuals themselves. It weighs heavily on their children and caregivers as well. While they strive to provide the best possible care, they often grapple with feelings of helplessness and grief as they witness their loved ones suffering. This situation can create an emotional burden that strains relationships and contributes to a sense of family distress. Ultimately, the cycle of suffering affects not just the elderly but ripples through the lives of their loved ones, as they navigate the complex emotions tied to caregiving and the anguish of seeing a cherished family member endure such hardship. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 3. Elderly people without pensions or savings. As they enter the later stages of life, many elderly individuals who lack pensions or savings face a significant financial burden. This lack of financial security often forces them into a position where they must repeatedly turn to their children for monetary assistance. This reliance on their children can be an incredibly humbling experience. Each request for financial help comes with a heavy emotional weight, as the act of asking for money can feel deeply uncomfortable and degrading. Every time they find themselves in need, the embarrassment of having to ask their children can be overwhelming. They may struggle with feelings of inadequacy and guilt, knowing that their financial situation has placed an additional burden on their family. Furthermore, this dynamic can lead to tension in the parent-child relationship, as the elderly may sense their children's frustration or disdain regarding their requests for support. The need for assistance, Once a simple exchange between family members can become a source of conflict and resentment, complicating what should ideally be a supportive and nurturing relationship. This ongoing cycle of dependency not only affects their self-esteem but also places strain on the familial bonds that should ideally offer comfort and solace in later years. Number 4. Elderly people without their independent housing. As individuals age, many envision a future where they can comfortably live with their children, relying on their support and companionship. However, the reality of this arrangement often unfolds differently, leading to unforeseen tensions and conflicts. Even in families where children are caring and respectful, the prolonged coexistence can foster an atmosphere of friction. In many rural areas, it is common for elderly parents to transfer ownership of their homes to their children well before they reach old age, believing that this act will secure their well-being. Unfortunately, this decision frequently results in a precarious situation, as these elderly individuals find themselves without a permanent residence later in life. Instead of enjoying the stability of their own home, they are left to navigate a life of displacement, shuttling between their children's houses. One month might find them staying with one son, while the next month requires them to move to another son's home. This constant relocation disrupts their sense of security and belonging, creating a rootless existence that can be deeply unsettling. Although it may appear that the children are generously providing for their elderly parents, the reality is that these individuals often endure significant emotional strain in their rotating living arrangements. Living in their sons' homes, the elderly may feel as though they are intruding, existing under someone else's roof rather than enjoying the comfort and independence of their own space. This dynamic can strip away their dignity and autonomy, leaving them feeling like guests in a home that should ideally be a sanctuary. Ultimately, the illusion of care can lead to a much grimmer reality, where the elderly experience isolation and unhappiness rather than the security and love they sought by moving in with their children. The lack of a personal, stable living environment can significantly impact their overall well-being, highlighting the importance of independent housing options for the elderly. Number 5. Elderly people who never married or had children. Some elderly individuals make the conscious decision to remain childless, opting not to marry or start a family. While this choice may have brought them a sense of freedom and independence throughout their lives, it can lead to profound loneliness and vulnerability as they age. When these seniors become bedridden or face health challenges, they often find themselves in a distressing situation, lacking even the simplest comforts, such as someone to bring them a cup of tea or provide companionship. Despite having financial resources or residing in a nursing home, the absence of children and close family connections can leave these elderly individuals feeling isolated and defenseless. In a nursing home setting, they may become targets for mistreatment by caregivers who may not have the same personal investment in their well-being as family members would. Without a strong support network, they are also at risk of being bullied or marginalized by other residents, leading to further emotional distress and a diminished sense of dignity. The lack of familial ties means that when these seniors require assistance, they often face challenges in receiving the care they need. Their independence, once a source of pride, can quickly turn into a burden as they navigate the complexities of aging without the familiar love and support that typically comes from children or a spouse. This situation highlights the importance of community and connection in the lives of elderly individuals, as the absence of such relationships can significantly impact their quality of life, leaving them feeling abandoned and alone in their most vulnerable moments. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 6. Elderly people with children who have no prospects. For many elderly individuals, the experience of aging can be profoundly impacted by the circumstances of their children, particularly when those children lack direction and ambition. If adult children find themselves in a situation where they do not possess the necessary skills to secure employment or generate income, they may resort to a lifestyle characterized by idleness, spending their days lounging around the house, indulging in food and drink, and relying heavily on their parents for financial support can create a challenging environment for the elderly. In such situations, the twilight years of these seniors are often marred by unhappiness and discontent. Regardless of the financial stability or resources the elderly may have accumulated over their lifetimes, the continual drain of their finances by unmotivated children can lead to an inevitable depletion of their savings. As their funds diminish, the family finds itself increasingly vulnerable, ill-equipped to handle any unforeseen crises that may arise. The emotional toll of this dynamic can be just as significant as the financial strain. Elderly parents may experience feelings of frustration, helplessness, and worry as they watch their children squander opportunities and remain dependent on them. The desire to support their offspring can become a double-edged sword, as their generosity may ultimately jeopardize their financial security and peace of mind. As resources dwindle, the potential for familial discord and stress increases, further complicating the already delicate balance of relationships in the household. Ultimately, the intertwining of financial dependency and emotional strain paints a sobering picture of the later years for many elderly individuals, highlighting the profound impact that their children's choices can have on their overall well-being and happiness. Number 7. Elderly people with a lifetime of poor conduct. Throughout their youth, some individuals exhibited behaviors and traits that reflect a lifetime of poor character. They may have engaged in harmful habits such as smoking, excessive drinking, and gambling, prioritizing their immediate pleasures over the well-being of those around them. Their selfishness often manifested in an unwillingness to consider the needs and feelings of others, leading to a reputation for being bad-tempered and abrasive. This attitude may have translated into abusive behavior towards their spouses and neglect towards their families, creating a toxic environment that pushed loved ones away. As these individuals age, the consequences of their past actions become increasingly evident. In their later years, they often find themselves isolated and unpopular, as their children and spouses gradually distance themselves from them. The relationships that could have been a source of support and companionship in old age instead become strained, marked by resentment and unresolved conflicts. The loneliness that accompanies this estrangement can be profound, as the elderly come to realize that their earlier choices and behaviors have left them with few, if any, meaningful connections. Ultimately, the legacy of their poor conduct not only impacts their relationships but also shapes their experience of aging, leading to a deep sense of regret and isolation in a time of life that many hope to spend surrounded by love and support. Number 8. Elderly people who gave all their savings to their children. Many parents, driven by an innate desire to support and nurture their children, often find themselves in a situation where they willingly deplete their savings to assist their struggling families. Witnessing their children face financial hardships can evoke deep feelings of empathy and love, prompting these parents to sacrifice their hard-earned savings without a second thought. This generous act, while rooted in unconditional love, can lead to complex and challenging consequences as time goes on. On one hand, parents may feel a sense of fulfillment and pride in providing for their children during difficult times, believing that their financial support can alleviate burdens and foster stability. However, this well-intentioned gesture can inadvertently pave the way for future complications. By relinquishing their savings, these elderly individuals may find themselves in precarious financial situations as they age, lacking the necessary funds to support their own needs such as healthcare, housing, and daily living expenses. Moreover, the act of giving can sometimes lead to unanticipated strains in family dynamics. Children may come to rely heavily on their parents' financial assistance, fostering a sense of entitlement rather than independence. This dependency can create an imbalance in the parent-child relationship, potentially leading to resentment or feelings of obligation on both sides. Parents may feel burdened by the pressure to continue providing support, while children might feel guilty for the sacrifices made on their behalf. Ultimately, while the desire to help children is a powerful motivator for many parents, it is essential to recognize the potential pitfalls of such generosity. Striking a balance between offering support and ensuring their financial security is crucial for elderly individuals. They must consider their long-term well-being, as well as the implications of their actions on their family relationships, to avoid creating situations that could lead to regret and hardship in their later years. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 9. Elderly people whose children live far away. In today's increasingly mobile society, many elderly individuals find themselves living in rural areas while their children have relocated to bustling cities, pursuing careers and lives that often take them far from home. This geographical separation can create a profound sense of isolation for these elderly parents, who may only have the opportunity to see their children once or twice a year. In some instances, children have even settled abroad, leading to years passing without any visits or meaningful contact. This estrangement not only deprives the elderly of emotional support, but also makes practical assistance and companionship nearly impossible to attain. The implications of such distance are profound. For many elderly individuals, the lack of regular interaction with their children can lead to a deep sense of loneliness and abandonment. They may yearn for the connection and support that comes from family, but the reality is that their children's lives have moved on, leaving their parents feeling left behind. This disconnect can be particularly tragic, as the elderly navigate the challenges of aging health concerns, mobility issues, and the loss of friends or partners without the comfort of familial support nearby. In extreme cases, this isolation can lead to dire situations. An elderly person living alone in a rural home might pass away without anyone knowing, their absence going unnoticed for days, weeks, or even longer. The tragic reality is that, in these circumstances, there may be no one to check in, no one to care for them in their time of need. This can result in lives marked not just by loneliness, but also by the haunting possibility of being forgotten in their final moments. The emotional and social ramifications of such distance cannot be overstated. Elderly individuals facing the double burden of physical decline and emotional isolation require not only financial stability, but also the warmth of human connection. As families continue to spread out geographically, it becomes increasingly vital to find ways to maintain those connections, ensuring that the elderly are not left to navigate their twilight years in solitude, bereft of the love and support that every individual deserves. The quality of life during one's twilight years is influenced by more than just the accumulation of wealth and careful planning during youth. It hinges significantly on the care and support provided by family and society. Many elderly individuals who experience the most challenging and sorrowful lives in their later years often find themselves lacking economic security, grappling with poor health, and being isolated from their children, leading to profound loneliness and helplessness. As each of us will inevitably confront old age, it is crucial to reflect on how we can avoid becoming part of this unfortunate demographic. While we strive to care for ourselves, we must also be mindful of the elderly in our communities, offering them greater understanding and compassion. By doing so, we can help ensure that every elderly person experiences a warm and peaceful retirement. In today's society, the notion that having children to rely on in old age is a privilege reserved for the older generation is becoming increasingly prevalent. For many in the new generation, this idea is less attainable. Influenced by open-minded ideologies and the growing popularity of child-free dink lifestyles, perceptions have shifted dramatically. Many young people now believe that life should not be solely about continuing the family line or serving as a safety net for elderly care. Instead, they emphasize the importance of living as independent and free individuals. Consequently, the choice of whether to marry or have children is often seen as irrelevant. As long as one works diligently and saves sufficiently, it is possible to secure a comfortable nursing home and enjoy a dignified life in old age. However, can one truly live out their remaining years well without having a single child? The case of 73-year-old Mr. Gua provides a poignant perspective. A childless man, he once believed that a successful career, financial stability, and a loving partner would shield him from the fears associated with elderly care. However, after the passing of his partner 2 years ago and his subsequent move into a nursing home, he has come to a regrettable realization, despite his previous convictions. He feels that having children is an essential aspect of life. After 6 months in the nursing home, he reflects on his situation, recognizing the profound sense of loss and the limitations that come with navigating aging alone. Mr. Gua's story serves as a reminder of the complexities surrounding aging, family dynamics, and the need for social support. While independence and self-sufficiency are admirable goals, the emotional and practical realities of aging often highlight the value of familial connections. As we consider our futures, it is vital to acknowledge the importance of building relationships and fostering connections, ensuring that we are not left isolated in our later years. Ultimately, cultivating a society that values the elderly and prioritizes their well-being alongside our aspirations is key to achieving a fulfilling and dignified old age for everyone. Here is Mr. Gu's story. At the age of 73, I find myself reflecting on a life rich with experiences, shaped by the unique circumstances of my upbringing. I was born in a small county town where my family was perceived as relatively affluent compared to our neighbors. My parents were hard-working individuals who managed to provide for us well, resulting in a household of 5 children, my eldest sister, myself as the second child, followed by my younger brother, another brother, and finally, my youngest sister. Among my siblings, I was seen as the most promising, often regarded as the star of the family. From my early years in elementary school through my time in high school, I consistently achieved excellent grades, often outshining my brothers and sisters in academic performance. My teachers and peers recognized my potential, and I was widely considered the most likely to secure a place in college. However, fate had other plans. Due to the suspension of the college entrance exams during that era, I found myself sent to the countryside as part of the educated youth movement. This pivotal shift marked the beginning of an 8-year chapter in my life where I lived and worked in rural areas, until 1977 when I finally returned to the city at the age of 26. Upon my return, I was elated to reunite with my wife, whom I had met during our years as educated youth. Although we had already registered our marriage, both of us carried the dreams of pursuing higher education. We were determined to prioritize our academic aspirations over starting a family. As newlyweds, we chose to forgo having children, focusing instead on our shared goal of taking the college entrance exams together. My parents were staunchly opposed to this decision, firmly believing that I should focus on my studies while my wife should stay home and fulfill traditional expectations of motherhood. However, I was resolute and chose to defy their wishes, insisting that my wife and I would prepare for the exams as a team. Our perseverance paid off. In the first year after the college entrance exams were reinstated, both my wife and I successfully gained admission to the same university. Our time in college was a whirlwind of academic commitments, leaving little room for the typical joys of married life. As a result, we chose not to have children during our studies. We had initially agreed that we would start a family after graduation and secure stable jobs. However, upon completing our degrees and being assigned to good positions, our perspectives began to shift. Both of us found immense fulfillment in our professional lives, and as the years passed, the desire to have children diminished. We relished the freedom of living as a couple without the responsibilities of parenthood. Life became an adventure of sorts, allowing us to explore our interests and passions together, unencumbered by the demands that children would bring. We cherished our autonomy, spending our time as we pleased, often indulging in spontaneous trips and shared hobbies, fostering a relationship that felt more like that of lovers than a conventional married couple. Meanwhile, my traditional parents, despite the joy of many grandchildren from my siblings, persistently urged my wife and me to have a child. They believed that, given my position as the most stable among the 5 siblings, I could easily manage the financial responsibilities that come with raising a child. Yet my wife and I remained firm in our decision. We witnessed many of our colleagues returning home after long hours at work, only to be overwhelmed by family obligations. Some even sacrificed promising career opportunities to devote time to their children. While we were not workaholics, we were acutely aware of the challenges parenthood presented, and we felt it was in our best interest to maintain our current lifestyle without the addition of children. People in our lives often advise us to consider having children or at least adopting, suggesting that we might want someone to care for us in our old age. However, I believe that as a stable dual-income couple, equipped with a house, savings, and a promising pension, we would not require the support of children in our later years. Additionally, during that time there were strict policies limiting families to having only one child. I contemplated the implications. If we had a daughter, she would eventually marry and leave, while a son might not be as devoted as one would hope. This led me to the conclusion that, ultimately, it was perhaps wiser not to have children at all. In reflection, my life has been a tapestry woven from choices that prioritized education, personal freedom, and mutual aspirations over traditional paths. While society may have viewed our decision through a critical lens, my wife and I have crafted a fulfilling life together, rich in experiences and devoid of regret. In the earlier years of my life, my wife and I navigated our journey without fully understanding the term that encapsulated our lifestyle. It wasn't until the 1990s, when we began to have greater access to global perspectives and information, that we discovered our choice was commonly referred to as DINK, which stands for dual income. No kids, this revelation opened our eyes to the fact that many people around the world were embracing similar lifestyles, characterized by a sense of freedom and openness that we had naturally adopted without labeling it. Our enjoyment of this freedom allowed us to pursue our passions and dreams, leading us to never seriously consider the idea of having children. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. However, the narrative of our lives took a dramatic turn after my retirement. My wife fell ill unexpectedly, and her condition deteriorated alarmingly fast. On the very day she received her diagnosis, I found myself caught up in the demands of work, too busy to be there for her in that critical moment. Despite this, my wife remained resolutely optimistic. She often reassured me with her unwavering spirit, saying things like, "You work hard, and I will take care of myself." Her hopefulness served as a testament to her strength and resilience, even in the face of adversity. As her health declined, she was eventually hospitalized, yet she continued to offer me comfort. Even from her hospital bed, she insisted that her situation was not serious and reassured me that she would soon recover. She often spoke of wanting to visit a beloved theme park in our city once she regained her strength. While I was deeply concerned for her well-being, I couldn't bring myself to deny her the joy of planning future outings. I understood how much she loved to travel and immerse herself in new experiences, so I chose to support her dreams, believing that we would embark on those adventures together once she felt better. However, 3 heartbreaking months later, when I returned to the hospital, I was confronted with the devastating reality that my wife was now bedridden, her spirit dimmed by illness. In those moments, my heart ached with unbearable loneliness as I watched the woman I loved struggle, unable to care for herself. It felt as though the weight of my work obligations had created an insurmountable barrier between us, preventing me from providing the comfort and support she desperately needed. After spending a week by her side, I found it impossible to remain indefinitely away from my job, forcing me to return to work, hoping for better news. One fateful morning, I received the most devastating news imaginable, the kind that shatters lives. My wife had passed away peacefully, leaving me in a state of shock and disbelief. The pain of losing her was indescribable. It felt as though a part of my very being had been ripped away. The loneliness that enveloped me in the wake of her passing was overwhelming. I found myself grappling with a profound sense of loss, feeling as though I no longer wanted to continue living without her by my side. The marriage we had built together, filled with love and companionship, was irreplaceable, and the absence of children only compounded my grief. My wife and I had once discussed the possibility of starting a family after we graduated, a dream that had lingered in our hearts. If we had chosen to have children earlier in our lives, perhaps I could still find solace in the presence of a daughter or son. I often think that even if I had struggled to find time to care for my wife during her illness, our children would have been there to support and care for the mother. Now, in this season of regret, I find myself mourning not just my wife, but also the choices we made that led to a life without children. The silence in our home echoes the emptiness I feel inside. No child to inherit my wealth, no one to hold my hand as I face the inevitable passage of time, and no one to comfort me in the depths of my solitude. Each day feels heavier without the laughter and joy that a child could have brought into our lives, amplifying my sense of isolation in this world. I decided to try living alone for a while after my wife passed away, believing that it would allow me the independence I desired. To assist me in this new chapter of my life, I hired caregivers. However, I soon found that I couldn't quite adapt to the solitude. The house felt unbearably empty, echoing with the silence that followed my wife's absence. After much contemplation, I decided to move into a well-regarded nursing home in the city when I turned 72. I hoped that living in a community with other elderly people, receiving assistance from caregivers, and engaging in a variety of activities would bring joy and fulfillment to my remaining years. Initially, my transition to the nursing home felt promising. The amenities offered for elderly entertainment were plentiful, the food suited my tastes, and I was surrounded by many other single elderly individuals who were also seeking companionship. For a time, I genuinely felt content. The vibrant activities, social gatherings, and organized events created a lively atmosphere that seemed to promise a fulfilling life in my new environment. However, after about 2 months, I began to feel a growing sense of discomfort. One significant issue became clear. While it was relatively easy to gain entry into the nursing home, it was surprisingly difficult to leave. In the first month of my stay, I longed to visit my home and reconnect with old friends. To my dismay, I learned that leaving the facility required submitting an application that had to be approved by a guardian who would then be responsible for picking me up. My guardian, my nephew, lived far away in the provincial capital and was unable to come to my aid. The process was complicated and bogged down by a mountain of paperwork, leaving me feeling trapped. That was the first moment I truly perceived the nursing home as restrictive and confining. It dawned on me that, for many elderly residents, getting out was contingent upon their familial situation. Without children or supportive relatives nearby, one was effectively locked in, with no option to leave, unless a guardian was available to assist. Another troubling realization was the palpable discrimination that existed among the elderly residents based on whether they had children visiting them or not. At first, the atmosphere among the residents was amicable. We all seemed to get along well, and the caregivers appeared friendly and attentive. However, as time went on and the other residents learned of my child-free status and distant guardian, the dynamics shifted dramatically. The elderly individuals who had children visiting them regularly were treated noticeably better than those of us who did not receive any familial visits. This led to a growing sense of isolation and hurt among those of us without children. The constant comparisons and the boasting of those visiting children served only to deepen the divide. It felt like bullying at times, with the families of some residents relying heavily on their children for support, leaving those of us without that advantage feeling marginalized and vulnerable. Moreover, I noticed that the caregivers exhibited a selective approach in their treatment of residents. Those of us without children or regular visitors seemed to receive less attention and care. Some residents managed to curry favor by offering tips to the caregivers, which only highlighted the inequity in treatment. Ultimately, the nursing home environment turned out to be more oppressive and disheartening than I had anticipated. Despite the well-maintained facilities and the array of entertainment options available, I eventually came to the stark realization that the overall atmosphere was incredibly gloomy. Being confined within those walls, day after day, adhering to the same monotonous routine, while encountering other elderly residents, many of whom were ill or disabled, became increasingly difficult to bear. During my 6-month stay, I witnessed the passing of 3 elderly residents, an experience that was nothing short of terrifying and deeply unsettling. After enduring this bleak existence for 6 months, I finally reached my breaking point and decided to return to my own home. In the aftermath of this experience, I found myself grappling with deep regret over my initial decision to live in the nursing home. I came to the sobering realization that having children plays a significant role in navigating life's later stages. If one cannot have biological children, I believe it is crucial to consider adoption, as having someone to rely on during old age can make all the difference. While a child-free life may seem carefree and fulfilling in the earlier years, it often leads to profound regret and heartache as one grows older. In today's world, having children might not guarantee support in one's twilight years, but I firmly believe that children serve as a sort of nuclear deterrent against loneliness and despair. You might not think you'll need them, but the truth is, you can't afford to be without them. In a nursing home setting, the treatment and care provided to elderly individuals with children can differ significantly from those who are without. This stark contrast has led me to advise young people today, regardless of how promising their careers may seem, how well they've planned their pensions, or the extent of their savings, to consider the importance of marriage and parenthood. It is essential to not postpone these life choices until you find yourself in your later years, potentially regretting the paths not taken when facing the challenges of aging and health. Allow me to share an honest perspective from my own life. My name is Wu, and I reside in the picturesque area of Dalian at 79 years of age. I reflect on my journey as a retired doctor who has not practiced for the past 24 years. In the early days of my retirement, my pension was modest, but it has steadily increased over the years. Currently, I receive a monthly pension of 7,000 yuan, which provides a comfortable standard of living for me. My husband and I were fortunate to have met through a mutual colleague while working at the same institution. I found him to be an exceptionally diligent and attentive man, both in his professional endeavors and our personal lives. I believed that marrying someone with such admirable qualities would lead us to a fulfilling and prosperous life together. Throughout our marriage, my husband consistently treated me with kindness and respect. Our communication was open and honest, which contributed to the harmony of our relationship, allowing us to rarely engage in arguments. We were blessed with 2 sons, a family size that was often considered ideal during our time, especially when many couples opted for larger families. With both my husband and I holding stable jobs and earning decent incomes, our living standards were relatively high, enabling us to provide equally for both of our sons. We fostered a strong bond between them by treating them fairly and impartially, which encouraged frequent visits as they grew older. After retirement, both of our sons established their own families. Having experienced the challenges of raising children themselves, I took on the rewarding yet demanding role of caring for my grandchildren. This responsibility, while challenging, brought immense joy to my life. As the grandchildren started school, our lives became significantly easier, allowing my husband and me to pursue our love for travel. We often embarked on journeys with friends and colleagues, creating wonderful memories along the way. However, as the years passed, traveling became less appealing due to the physical toll it took on us. Recovery from trips was slower than it had once been. Nevertheless, we found joy in our daily routines, relishing the simple pleasure of conversations with friends and staying active within our community. 2 years ago, though, my husband's health began to decline significantly, leading to frequent bouts of illness. As an elderly woman myself, I realized that I was unable to provide him with the care he required. After much deliberation, we made the difficult decision to hire a caregiver, aiming to avoid placing any burden on our sons. We employed a diligent female caregiver named Xiao Song, agreeing on a monthly salary of 7,000 yuan, an amount equivalent to my pension. From the start, Xiao Song displayed a commendable work ethic. She seamlessly took over various household chores requiring minimal direction, which allowed us to relax and enjoy our time together. Her management of the home significantly enhanced our quality of life. One day, during a walk outside, my husband unexpectedly collapsed. Alone and unable to assist him, I felt a wave of panic wash over me. Fortunately, Xiao Song, concerned about our prolonged absence, came searching for us. She quickly provided the necessary help, ensuring he reached the hospital in time. The doctor later informed us that had we arrived even a few minutes later, the outcome could have been fatal. I was deeply grateful for her quick action and decided to express my appreciation by giving her a bonus of 2,000 yuan, which she graciously accepted. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 5 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. As time went on, Xiao Song began joining us on outings, and our relationship with her grew warmer. We made an effort to treat her well, and since my sons visited us regularly, often bringing more food than we could consume, I allowed Xiao Song to take some of the surplus home with her. During festive occasions, I also made it a point to gift her bonuses and thoughtful presents. However, over time, I began to notice small items disappearing from our home. At first, I brushed it off as a mere coincidence, but when a precious necklace, a gift from my husband that held immense sentimental value, went missing, I confronted her about it. She denied any wrongdoing. Lacking tangible evidence, I took the matter into my own hands and searched her room while she was out. To my dismay, I discovered the necklace hidden in her luggage. This act of betrayal was unbearable, and I knew I had to take action. Despite her pleas for another chance, I decided to let her go, firmly believing that her actions would likely repeat. After Xiao Song's departure, we attempted to hire other caregivers. However, none were able to meet the standards we had come to expect. Ultimately, we decided to forgo hiring any further caregivers altogether. The prospect of moving to a nursing home was not appealing to us. We valued the comfort and familiarity of our own home far too much. After much discussion with each other, we decided that living with one of our sons would be the best solution. We convened a meeting with both of our sons and their wives to discuss our plans. I outlined our intentions to contribute 3,000 yuan each month for living expenses, along with an additional 5,000 yuan as a hardship allowance for whoever would be taking care of us. My older son and his wife both held stable jobs and were nearing retirement, while my younger son worked as a teacher and his wife managed a clothing store. Despite my initial concerns about the arrangement, my younger daughter-in-law stepped forward, expressing her gratitude for our past support in raising their children. She offered to take care of us, and my older daughter-in-law also agreed to assist whenever needed, particularly after her retirement. Their willingness to help deeply moved my husband and me, and we ultimately chose to move in with our younger son. My daughter-in-law decided to leave her job to dedicate herself to our care, and together, we forged a new, happy life under one roof. Both of our sons and their wives have shown tremendous filial piety, frequently showering us with gifts and cherishing the time spent together. Our weekly family dinners have become a cherished tradition, filled with laughter and joy, reinforcing the bonds that tie us together. Through this entire experience, I have learned that in the later stages of life, true reliance and support come from one's children. Their love and commitment ensure that our days are filled with comfort and fulfillment. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I sincerely hope that my experiences resonate with you and provide some insight into the importance of family ties as we navigate the complexities of waging. As we wrap up today's discussion, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned about the challenges faced by the elderly and the vital importance of nurturing relationships and preparing for the future. What insights resonated with you the most? I invite you to share one key takeaway you plan to put into practice in your life in the comments below. If you liked this video, please leave your comment. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Together, we can foster a supportive community that emphasizes compassion and understanding for our elders, ensuring that their twilight years are filled with love and dignity. Thank you for joining us.